On this episode of the Naturist Living Show, Just Naked.
This episode of the Naturist Living Show is brought to you by Bare Oaks Family Naturist Park. At Bare Oaks, we offer traditional naturist values in a modern setting. Free your body, free your mind. www.bareoaks.ca.
Welcome, dear listener, to episode 118 of the Naturist Living Show. My name is Stéphane Deschênes. I'm your host for the podcast, and I'm the owner of Bare Oaks Family Naturist Park. And when I've been following recently, in the last year and a bit, a new group in New York City called Just Naked. Now, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you will have heard Felicity from Young Naturist America, who are also based in New York and organize a number of events. And they were really active on social media, and they were very proactive, and they were very successful. Unfortunately, not enough. And if you want to hear more about that, you can go and listen to the episode titled Bye Bye YNA, where she talks about the challenges and the things that made them stop. So when I saw this new group, Just Naked, appear, and they weren't specifically a youth-oriented group, but they were clearly youth-minded, and they were very active on social media and very successful, I was quite interested because they seem to be filling a niche, a little hole there in the New York area, but not just New York, in social media in general, because you could see them everywhere. There's no borders anymore. And they were asking questions, making statements, posting blogs. They were looking at things a little differently here and there in a good way. And it was quite interesting. And then I heard that the two main organizers are Adam and Leah. They're married, and that they were coming to the Toronto area. So, well, I made sure that if they were coming to Toronto, I saw in their blog that they would come and visit us at Bare Oaks. And so they had a little stay, which was great because it meant we got to have a little chat. It's one of the big advantages I have of having the park, is it gives me a chance to meet all kinds of interesting people. And of course, having a podcast means it also gives me a chance to share some of those interviews or discussions I have with you as well. So here we go.
My name is Adam Schwietert. I am the co-founder of Just Naked NYC, which is a social nudist organization in NYC.
Is it a really old one? Has it been around a long time?
Yeah. Very long, all of about 11 months as of December 2019.
Okay. And because people can't see you, are you a really old naturist or nudist?
I'm 29 years old.
So you're a young guy.
Yes.
Good. So what's Just Naked?
Just Naked is an attempt to give people in urban environments an opportunity to experience social nudity. And we do that by hosting many different events in many different places around New York City and now New Jersey, and hopefully beyond. These events are many different kinds, including poetry readings, dinner parties. We do movement classes and art drawing events, and hopefully many more.
So you call the group Just Naked. Do you consider yourselves naturists or nudists?
That's a good question. I think I'm growing into that. I was not so interested in being labeled one way or the other, probably mostly because I wasn't too intimate with the philosophy of naturism and nudism as you have presented it, and some others have, and it didn't. To be honest, I didn't like a lot of the way people spoke about naturism. It seemed in a lot of ways kind of limiting and dogmatic. But then once I realized that there is what's the word? A more fundamental, like, humanist philosophy that exists at the core of all that, then I'm starting to realize that I can probably get behind that phrase, that label.
So what's your background? You're not a naturist or nurse by background, right?
No, I grew up in a house that was not necessarily naked. When I was really young, I remember there being a lot more clothing optionality. I was lucky to be raised by pretty open-minded folks, and yet there was just sort of this fear of, as I was coming into my body and bit the apple, I was experiencing all this shame. I never really had anyone to talk to about it, and I didn't have a framework to work with that, and so clothes just became the norm.
So how do you go from that to founding Just Naked?
Yeah, good question. So my first experience of social nudity that I can remember was shooting a music video with the Flaming Lips in Portland, and you can look it up. It's called Watching the Planets. And I think, and to go back to my earlier point about open-minded parents, I think my stepmom sent me the link, and for this sort of open call, they were looking for cyclists who were willing to show up to this shoot and be naked. And in fact, now that I say that, I may have done a naked bike ride before that, or I don't remember if it was before or after. In any case, as I got older, I knew that naturism was something I was interested in. However, I was pretty thoroughly confused with a lot of, like, lust and just desire to be around naked women. So
It's normal, I think.
Yeah.
Especially given what society teaches you.
Yeah, all that conditioning and stuff. So yeah, then it was sort of like, as I didn't have any sort of philosophy as I went into it, there was a strong urge to rebel against what I could identify as being sort of a ridiculous social standard to keep our clothes on, especially when swimming or whatever, or when it's brutally hot outside. So I had that, but then I had sort of this shame because I also had this passion, this crazy young man's desire to be around like sexy naked women, and I don't think I ever actually, like, acted in a way that betrayed that to anyone, but it was definitely in the back of my head. So then that of course was mixed with, like, this layer of shame for feeling that way and feeling like maybe I wasn't going into it for the right reasons. It was really confusing, to be honest, which is why I think I only really so I did the shoot and that went well. I didn't make the cut, so you won't see me in the music video. But I think the reason I finally got into it when I came to New York City was because I started to grow up. I started to study a lot of the Me Too movement was sort of like bubbling up. This desire to empathize with women, as I was considered myself polyamorous, and I was dating and I was dating a lot of feminists, and I started to really learn about the female experience, and then once that sort of very gradually worked to calm that neurotic sexual craving of women, like objectifying them, then I felt more comfortable actually putting myself in a social nude situation, knowing that I wasn't going to freak out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is I got into naturism in my late teens, early 20s, and there was definitely a sexual aspect to it. Hormones are high. Um, but I say, just not just for me, but a lot of guys I've met go in for the wrong reason, but stay for the right ones.
Yeah, that sounds right.
It's not the sexual experience. Although it's important to not feel guilty for feeling sexual. We are sexual beings, and it's a balance, right? And we sometimes we're so sensitive about people assuming they're all sex craved, swinging, having orgies kind of people, that we make it sound like we've become asexual beings because we're naturists, and that's not true either. So somewhere in between is the right place.
And that the latter part of this, in my opinion, hyper-conservative asexual narrative, which I don't like to call people out, but there are organizations that very clearly still have that style of thinking in how they write about naturism, which I'm really deeply allergic to, and is why I think I was very reluctant to call myself a naturist, even when I started doing naked groups a few years ago, pre Just Naked.
Right. So that's a good question. You've, like many people, you discovered this, you find it fantastic, you stay for the right reasons. Most people stop there. They stop at being consumers of naturism or nudism. Why and how do you go to being an organizer and a leader?
Yeah, so I went to a few naked yoga events in New York City, and I felt great at them, but I recognized that there was a lot of improvement that could be made. And then I got together, was dating this wonderful woman who I had worked with, and I asked her if she'd be interested in starting a group, because I recognized that there was changes that could be made that were relatively easy. I have no official background in marketing or anything like that, but I knew I've done work like that for friends before, and I knew that could be the key. And in fact, as I'd mentioned earlier, I was very interested in spending my time around strong, intelligent women who were interested in equality, and this is all pre-Me Too, but you get the idea, that sort of mind of demanding respect, and I loved that. And so she and I started this group called Naked in Motion that is still going strong and is in many cities, and I recommend people check it out. We started that with the intention of creating a, quote, safe space for women, and focusing nearly all of our attention on that, on like, what would it take to get women here? What would it take? What kind of signaling do we need to do to get women to show up and feel held and feel respected? And that was the biggest problem that I saw in the other naked groups, is there was a majority of men by far, and no one seemed to care. No one seemed to even talk about it. It was sort of the elephant in the room. And then we do our naked yoga or whatever, and then we roll up our mats and go home, and no one is like, hey, well, what the hell? why are it's only men or whatever. So she and I worked to change that, and the changes we made, which we can talk about if you want, actually worked. And so that was encouraging.
But that wasn't Just Naked yet.
No, this is proto Just Naked.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then what?
Then I went to France, thought I was going to live there for the rest of my life, and didn't. And then came back and met my future wife, and who ironically is French, but you met her in New York City. I did, yeah. I think maybe learning a bit of French culture and language helped me to be more of a suitor for her.
Right.
So then I have a habit of like, manic depressive business pursuits, if that makes sense. So like I'll get really excited and be very energetic about some new idea, and then make a lot of phone calls and take a lot of notes and purchase some domains, and then I'll fall into this self-deprecating hole of feeling like I have no idea why I started this, and I'll do that multiple times a year, and then I'll have notebooks laying around of all these ideas and inventions and things that never get done. So my lovely wife Leia noticed this, and as I'm starting a new pursuit or something, she's like, well, what about this like just naked idea you were talking about? And she kept sort of gently bringing my mind back to that, and at a certain point she pulled hard enough, and we both decided to go into it together and to make it work. So as with Naked in Motion, I knew that there needed to be a feminine face of this organization. That's one of the factors of attracting women is having female leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, I'll do it if you're willing to put yourself out there and be the face of it. And she agreed. And so, which isn't to say she doesn't do a lot of work. In fact, she does.
Mm-hmm.
And we have very complementary skill sets.
Right.
So yeah, we had a few ideas. We started with a co-working space, which we rented an Airbnb to try this out. And in Wall Street, in the southern part of Manhattan, we rented this Airbnb for a few days, and then we had a co-working during the day, and then in the evening we held events. So we would do yoga and drawing. I don't know if we did drawing. I think we canceled a lot of the events because we didn't get enough people.
Right.
Like we had just started. We just created a group on Meetup, and we're advertising. So, but we had enough positive feedback to encourage us to keep going.
And so that is what became Just Naked.
That is, yeah.
And you've had, in less than a year, quite an impact. Like, you're all over social media.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a podcast, and you've done a lot of events.
Mm-hmm.
And you've gone through a lot of the challenges that a lot of clubs and places have gone through. You're also a member of Rock Lodge, or you go to Rock Lodge as well?
Absolutely, yeah. We lived there for a few months this last year.
You've experienced some of the frustrations that come with the movement, and the problems with gender balance and age and things.
Mm-hmm.
It strikes me that in some ways, YNA, Young Naturist America, was quite successful, and with Felicity and Jordan, but they got a little burned out and decided to stop with that. And in a way, you may be taking over some of their stuff. Would you say, is that true? Or
I can't speak to that very deeply because I never have been to their events. Their website doesn't exist, so I don't know exactly what they were doing. All of it is secondhand. So in the sense that first of all, we don't discriminate based on age. So there's no young anyone.
Right. You're not specifically a young group.
We happen to be.
Yeah.
But that's not our goal. Our goal is to just be representative of the general population of any textiled equivalent event that we happen to be holding. So the similarities are, we were doing events in New York that are naturist, and aside from that, I don't know. I don't know.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I can actually, one thing I can speak to is that from what I understand, they weren't necessarily trying to make a living at it. This is sort of I don't know that they were charging very much. I don't know that they had a really clear business model. From what I've heard, it didn't seem to be something that they were they were really trying to commercialize.
Well, I don't want to speak to for them, but I have in the past, and they've been on the show.
Okay.
Felicity in particular, and I know one of the frustrations they had was how much money they were putting in, and not. It wasn't looking like it was ever going to break even or cover the cost. I think Felicity at one point was hoping that she could make it her career or her job, because otherwise it's hard to do, because you have to get a job and it's very time consuming organizing events.
Yeah.
So either you have to do it or you have to hire people to do it if you really want to grow. And I think that's where you're heading, isn't it?
Absolutely. So maybe that would illustrate the biggest difference in our business models is the fact that from the beginning, Leah and I didn't want to be the ones hosting the events. We wanted to have more of a production level job, higher administrative level job, and we wanted to build a system wherein we can provide spaces to people who wanted to host events. We can provide avenues of publicity and handle the ticketing for people who wanted to host events, and we can provide training, most importantly, so that there was a brand element of Just Naked, so that eventually across the United States and perhaps the world, anytime you go to just like a branded yoga studio, like Bikram, which is maybe not the best example considering the recent documentary, but like that in the sense that you show up, you're going to get a certain thing,
right?
Whether the theme of the event is this or that, or the host of the event is this person or that person, there's going to be certain standards. That was the model from the beginning, and that seems to work very well in terms of scale, because as I wrote in the recent essay I published, we had over 70 events, over 700 tickets sold in 11 months, and Leah and I certainly didn't host all of that.
Right. So what is your business model? Describe it to us.
Yeah, so it's everything I just said, and plus...
But you have some interesting terminologies, like you have builders.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
So a builder is simply anyone who hosts an event, and that doesn't mean like the host, the person who owns the home that we're doing the event in. It means the person who designs the event, creates an event description, and tells us what they want to do. We talk about what sort of materials they would need, what sort of price range we're looking at, what is the demographic that they're looking to attract, and we consider all of that in our publicity. And our goal is to give them the tools they need to do the job well. If they're new to social nudism, which some of them are, in fact, we have to give them a crash course in what to do, how to notice bad actors and how to deal with that, how to notice people who may look like bad actors but actually are not, and how to make that distinction, how to help women in particular who show up and for whom it may be their first time and they may be alone, and help them feel comfortable. We give them all of that, and then we find spaces, and we're constantly looking for spaces. So if you have a space in New York City and you're here listening to this and you want to make a nominal amount of rent and have some very interesting things happen in your space, and contact us. But so yeah, we do all of that, and the model for us then is basically a franchise. We're figuring out what we want these events to look like, and what is the best way to create this type of a space in an urban environment. And the urban part of it is important because there is not an inherent sense of community like there is in a small town.
Right.
So especially with New York, there's a lot of people who are there on short contracts for work. There's a ton of tourists. So we have to be a bit more on guard with people who might want to just show up and cause trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the basic safeguards against that is that we don't accept cash at the door.
Mm.
If you want to come, you have to buy a ticket. You have to give us at the very least your name, and we have your billing address. So
yeah, absolutely.
So that eliminates a lot of people who are coming to specifically to harass and do damage.
How do you make sure your builders are not problematics or doing it for the wrong reason?
Good question. I guess a gut feeling. We get a lot of requests,
right,
from people who want to host events, and we've denied more than we've accepted.
Good.
So we're very, very cautious about that. And I wouldn't have anyone be a builder if they weren't someone who I wouldn't also, for example, like host in my home for a weekend. They have to be someone who I feel deeply comfortable around.
Good. And so the builders, they sell tickets, can hopefully make some money if they're doing it right.
They've made more money than we have.
Yeah, but you take a cut of that too, right?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
That's great.
Uh-huh.
There is, I don't know why, but in this movement is this whole idea that making money is bad.
Yeah.
And, you know, we can debate whether our system is the right system or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's the system we live in. You need money in order to pay your rent and eat and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why we're all supposed to be doing this for free. And certainly many people give, and that's awesome. But at the end, if your organization or Bare Oaks or any other organization cannot be making enough money to survive, it will fail.
There's a great book on this subject. I say great, but I just listened to a podcast with the author. It's on my shelf. I haven't read it. It's called Spirituality, Religion, and Making a Buck. It's by David Nichtern, who's a very famous musician and a Buddhist teacher. And in the podcast, he was talking about how exactly what you just said. People seem to think that if you're doing anything socially progressive, virtuous, that it needs to not have money involved, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad you're doing it, but you're not rich.
Not yet. I have no problem with making money.
No.
I wanna get rich doing this.
Could you have builders in other cities, or is it just in New York?
That's the next step, but we want to prove the concept here. And I think if we can prove it in New York City with all of the, as I said, population density and all the issues that come with that, all the impersonal, just the vibe, that impersonal vibe people often talk about with New Yorkers that don't look at each other or talk to each other. If we can prove it there and we can thrive there, then I'm confident that we'll be able to roll out to any other city. One more thing about the business model is that we're functioning as a startup, and with everything that means nowadays, we hear often about startups and specifically as kind of a tech startup, in the sense that a huge element of our growth moving forward will involve technology, tracking statistics and how people are attending different events, and using technology to receive feedback on certain events, certainly using technology to promote our events. And there will be an entire other arm of Just Naked that we're going to grow into with creating online content. And we can talk about that. I think that there's some interesting things to say about that. And with that, we are looking for venture capital. And if you've got a lot of money sitting around and you want to become an owner of Just Naked, reach out to us. And we've got one deal we're working on. And as we move forward, each round of investments will give us the the capital we need to make all the changes we have. And we're just hoping to continue proving that we're worth that investment and that we can make the money back.
So let's talk about how you work and what's worked and not worked. Gender balance is always an issue that comes back all the time. And I understand, because I've certainly had the experience of bringing women for their first experience to a 90% male environment, and it made them very uncomfortable on a first experience. Once you're in it well-established and you don't care anymore, once you've been doing it for a while, but that's not the objective. The objective is to make everybody comfortable, even on the first time. So what's your policy? What have you done to try to have gender balance? Because I know that was an issue, right?
Absolutely. First, maybe I'll say what we haven't done. There's some things that we're definitely not going to do, and from the very beginning have not even considered. First and foremost, the most, as you mentioned yesterday, just the laziest way to deal with this problem is to charge women much less, or couples much less, or not allow single men.
Right.
And this is just so obviously foolish. And I have no problem calling out any club that operates in that model, expecting a calm, social, nude environment that's different if you want to have a sex club.
Right.
Which is perhaps what a lot of these places turn into if they use such policies. You're objectifying women and giving men power,
right,
or sense of entitlement over them. So even going back to Naked in Motion, we knew that wasn't an option. The thing we did back then, and we still do now with Just Naked, is allowing women to wear bottoms without question. And that has been huge. We have played with the idea of taking away that rule, and every time that's a huge no from our female builders and from our female attendees. They say, no, don't do that. So we got a lot of pushback on that, because it's not PC. It's not, I guess nowadays you're supposed to pretend like gender is entirely a construct and it doesn't exist, and anyone who creates spaces that observe a gender binary in any way are somehow not socially progressive. And we got pushback on that policy and others that I'll mention.
So do most women wear bottoms?
No. Maybe at first, but they eventually, many of them, and some do and some always do, but many of them, even they'll start with the first 15-20 minutes of wearing bottoms. But this is probably my favorite thing to observe at our events, is especially women who come for the first time. They're physically very closed off. They've had to really work through an internal battle to show up to an event, and then it's a battle to actually take their clothes off and commit to coming in. Then it's a battle for them to maybe uncross their arms and be relaxed and allow their breasts to be not covered up,
right,
and or the belly or whatever their thing is, or to uncross their legs or whatever. Just there's this closedness that they come into our events with. And then if it's a good event, which most of them are, and we're doing a good job to help them feel comfortable and safe, I get to watch this gentle unfolding. It's like if you watch a time lapse of a flower blossoming, this unfolding of this person, and I can see them step into their humanity and into their truth and their confidence. And that is so amazing. And a huge part of that often is that the bottoms come off at some point. And you can kind of see and I've heard from women directly that there is sometimes a voice in the back of the head that's like, well, I could wear bottoms, but she's not wearing bottoms, and she's not wearing bottoms. And now, okay, now I'm the only woman wearing bottoms. And why am I wearing bottoms? This whole thing going on.
Sure.
And that's exactly why this whole thing is healing. It's just an interrogation of our self-loathing. And eventually, maybe they come off, and eventually maybe they're very uncomfortable, but then eventually maybe they're perfectly comfortable, and they leave feeling even better than when they came in.
So that's one of your strategies. You have a newer one that came out
Today or yesterday, or
well, a few months ago is when you first posted about the idea of not just letting men show up, single men show up, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Did you implement that right away, or
No.
you discussed it?
That, and we just presented it, and this is what we do with a lot of our policies. Is I'll write an essay, kind of floating the idea to the community, and seeing what people think about it. Also circulating it amongst my friends and other leaders in these communities, and we will implement it starting in January. The program is called Femme Fwd, and just yesterday I published an update to that essay you're referring to. That is, as far as I can tell, the model we'll be using moving forward, and it works like this. We will have some events that operate under the current model. In fact, it will be up to the builder if they want to switch to the Femme Fwd model. We're just offering it as an option. And the idea is this, is that if you're a single man and you want to come to one of our events, you have to be sponsored. There's 3 avenues, potentially more, but as far as I can identify, 3 avenues of entry into Femme Fwd events. One is you have to be sponsored by a woman who has attended our events in the past, and women can sponsor up to 3 men, and men cannot ask women for sponsorship directly.
Interesting.
Yeah. That way there's not this pressure, implicitly or explicitly, they can't ask for it. And in fact, that's a bannable offense.
So and there was lots of discussion about this. So a single man who doesn't know anybody at your event, how do they get in then?
Yeah, so...
because they can't even ask.
Yeah. So we've got 2 other paths of entry, perhaps more. We do want to make it accessible, but we have to have some mechanism, because even with our initial success, we've now are experiencing this classic 9-to-1 problem of men, and the retention rate is way higher for men. A man will come to every single event we have, whereas a woman might come once a month.
Right.
So, and it's not the men's problem. It's not no one's problem in particular. It's just our conditioning, perhaps our biology or whatever. But we need to have something, because this is not acceptable. So the other way to get in is to attend a men-only event, and then you'll be added on the list. And if you're on that list, then that means you, as a person who has attended one of our men-only events, can sponsor a friend. So this is a way to not discriminate against gay men in particular.
Right.
And so if you come to our Naked Men's Yoga weekly and you want to come to a naked board game night or something, you can not only come, but you can sponsor your pal, your guy friend, who maybe has never been to one of our events. Another path of entry, which I hadn't written about, I alluded to, is in the recent essay, is a class. We're going to teach a class on how to control our sexual urges and how to shift our perception of meaning men's perception of women as objects into a human, rather than objectifying them, personifying them. And
yes.
And I have some tricks and some meditations and things to do that, and going through that course and being sponsored by one of the women who are hosting that event, it will be another avenue, but just attending that will not be a guaranteed entry.
It's been surprising to me about how many men need help understanding women. You'd think there's so many women around, and you grow up with them around you. Your mother was a woman, that men would have a better understanding of the issues, but somehow a lot of them don't. And we could have a whole discussion about that, and we'd probably spend 10 hours talking about why that is. But yeah, it's something that we've noticed here too, is that the issue often, guys who come across as creepy are because they don't understand how to speak to women, or how to approach them, or how to say something to them that is not going to come across the wrong way.
Yeah.
Their intentions are good.
Yeah. And it's just sad. And it's not these guys' fault. And I think that's the biggest departure I have from the classic Me Too narrative is I see these guys as victims.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not a popular way of looking at this situation.
Well, yeah, but it's yelling at them or telling them they're stupid is not going to help.
Yeah.
Because that you're just making people defensive and upsetting them, and you're not teaching.
Yeah.
And that's the flaw sometimes is, I tend to lean on the left side of, politics and be socially that way. But
same.
I think the mistake that the left has done is to alienate the people that they thought didn't think like them, instead of educating them. There's a lot of people. There's some people that are so far gone you'll never change them because they're just, for whatever reason, entrenched in their racism or whatever it is. But there's a lot of people in the middle who just don't quite understand. And if you just alienate them and exclude them and insult them, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just going to push them in the other direction.
Yeah.
So
going all the way back to the nuclear or nuclear argument of our former President Bush in the United States, that's the easiest way to alienate an entire population, is make a big deal out of the way this person said a word that most of us say it wrong anyway. And so you've got this elitism on the left that is really toxic, and I think it's the reason we have the president we have in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. One more question on the gender thing then is, what about people who are trans? Because some people may identify as male or as female.
Yeah, or on any one of the other 36 genders, like non-binary or two-spirit.
So how do you handle that? Where do they fall in?
Yeah, good question. So our general policy is to show up to any event as the gender that you feel most comfortable as, with the understanding that you must have had a lived experience of that gender, which means that a trans person can show up to a men-only event if they're a trans man, or they can come to a women's-only event because they have had the lived experience as being a woman and the lived experience as being a man.
Right.
The thing we're not, this is a difficult issue, one of the few really, really clunky parts of doing these types of events in hyper progressive, multicultural, dense cities is dealing with people who are bad actors and show up to an event. Maybe they bought a dollar store wig and
yes.
put on some makeup, and they say, "Yeah, I'm a woman."
Right.
And then they're putting our builder in the uncomfortable position of somehow vetting their female experience, and that may sound like an unrealistic scenario, but it has happened at least once. in our events.
It's probably rare, but it does happen.
Extremely rare. But the thing is, when you've got a city of 8 million people, there's going to be someone who's got the gall or the just the right cocktail of chemicals swirling around in the brain to think that that's a good idea. So we have to address that issue. So we just have made it public that is something we're aware of, and if that's something you're gonna try, or our builders, at the end of the day, it's up to them to make the call, and we ask that they just follow their gut, and we'll take the fallout. It would be terrible if they made the wrong call and someone was actually presenting as that and living their life as that. But I personally have never had a doubt when someone is trans and they're living their life as the gender that they've chosen. There's no doubt in my mind.
So it's interesting to me that in the 1 year that you've been organizing events, you've slammed head on already into this whole issue of gender balance. Yeah. And possibly when you started, you didn't even think you'd have to worry about that. All right?
No, we definitely knew it would be an issue.
You definitely did? Okay, yeah. Fair enough.
We thought that by simply our elegant advertising and our taking the measures that we had, that would solve the problem, but there was still some doubt in my mind.
So why does it matter? Because that's one of the things, whenever this discussion happens, mm-hmm. and not just online, I've been having this discussion since before anybody was on the internet.
Yeah.
It's been happening, back in the 80s, and I'm sure it was happening. That's when I got involved. I'm sure it was happening in the 70s, 60s, 50s, whatever. Mm-hmm. Some people will say, why does it matter? Who cares if it's 9-1?
Yeah, well, it wouldn't matter if you're going to shoot darts or play a pickup game of, I don't know, basketball. Like there's so many times in our life where we are in a room. If you're at the DMV and there's one man in a room full of 8 or 9 women, no one's going to flail their arms and say, oh, what is this gender imbalance? Like,
right.
It's just, sometimes that is the way it is. And then sometimes there are things that men happen to be more interested in than women. And nudity might just be one of those things.
Right.
At this point.
Okay.
For a variety of reasons. I'm sorry, what was your question?
Well, the question then is, why does that matter? Why,
oh, okay.
Why do we care? Why do we need to balance it?
Yeah, because it's about healing. It's about healing. I don't have really any interest in social nudity apart from its ability to heal us individually and as a society. It's perfectly boring to me otherwise.
Yes. Does it also, often the argument is it makes women uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And some women naturists have said, I don't care if it's 9-1. What's your experience with that? Does it matter to women?
Yeah. I see where you're going. The answer is yes.
And so you've seen that. It matters.
That's the healing aspect of it, is there needs to be a sense of camaraderie among women. And women are already they're already raised with this expectation of being a piece of meat, and that their looks are the most important aspect of them, and that they are an object of desire for men. And there's no better way to emphasize that than putting them as the only naked woman in a room full of men.
But is that your opinion as a man? We're 2 men talking to each other.
No, that's true. Yeah. Well, I could go get my wife. She can answer the question. But I'll tell you, yeah, definitely.
Women have told you that?
This is coming from feedback, yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to believe that women didn't have a problem with it, but we've literally had women leave events. And in fact, that's when the alarm bells started going off. Over the year, each month we would notice that events are slipping more and more and more towards men in our ticket sales. And And we were like, okay, and sort of burying our heads in the sand, hoping that didn't keep going the way it was going. But then it kept going. And then eventually we got reports from our builders saying women are actually leaving because they're showing up to events and realizing the only other woman in the room is the one leading the event. And as you said, there are some women who are perfectly okay with that. Some women who even love being the only, or would prefer being the only woman in the room full of men.
Right.
And God bless those women. That's great. Whatever. But they're not the ones that they're maybe not the ones that need us the most in terms of our specific approach to healing through social nudity.
And what about age? I mean, you yourself have complained about the fact that when you go to nature's places near you, mm-hmm. it's all much older people. I think you said over 60, and you, as you said, are a young person. Mm-hmm. Is that a concern or an issue for what you're doing?
Not really. I think it's a fair representation, and that's what I like. We have some retired folks, some working middle age, some people just out of college or in college. The populations we would hope to attract in the future are families with children, and as Leah and I work towards raising a family, and we're actually just bringing our kids to stuff, hopefully that will encourage other parents to bring their kids. But it's New York, and these events are happening in the evenings, and once we're big enough that we can petition the city to open up areas of different parks, or open perhaps new beaches, then we can start to do more family events during the day. But I think as long as we're doing these evening events, it sort of eliminates the attracting families who might bring children.
So if age is not an issue really in your events, why do you think it is in the established naturist nudist clubs you've visited?
Because they don't deal with these problems directly. They don't talk about the gender issue. They pretend like nudity is a perfectly non-sexual thing, and if you have any sexual thoughts while you're here, you're a goddamn pervert and you need to leave. And that's not true, first of all, and it's not compassionate, and it's just a stuffy way of thinking about the world in this black and white way. Nuance is hard, but it's necessary if we're going to really create something sustainable. Another element that we are working more and more to honor is this, and this is a startup. Eric Ries wrote this book, The Lean Startup.
Right.
And his philosophy is build, measure, learn. The faster you can do that, then the better you'll be as a startup. And we're really trying to do that. We're trying to build something. We measure, we have actionable goals, and then we review and see how well that change worked, and then build the next version. And that's why I say our organization is kind of like a tech startup, because we're releasing new versions all the time, but with these changes based on the feedback we're receiving. And I don't see any of the established clubs operating in that way. They say, this is the way we do it, and we're right and you're wrong. And that's unfortunate, and they're feeling the burn of that. I
always joke that those people who think they know it all really bother those of us who actually do.
I love that. That's great.
So, what's the future now for Just Naked?
Yeah,
with like in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, where do you see it going?
Yeah, so our goal is to really nail this model of what I'm calling a satellite model, meaning we're hosting events in a non-landed way. So different venues, different people's homes and whatever. That's a model that when it's perfected enough, when it's feeling well baked, then we can export it to other cities and scale. We'll be training people in other cities to be event producers, which is the job Leia and I hold, and then training them how to train the builders, and creating a network of producers and builders all sharing tips and tricks and experiences and spinning that build, measure, learn wheel faster. And then the next model is actually landing the club in the city. We want to build out an urban nudist club right in the heart of Manhattan, and have it be, I'm imagining, have some co-working spaces, and during the day have it function like a social club. You can come here and work on your laptop, or maybe have a stretch or take a nap or whatever, read a book, and then have a early morning yoga or movement, dance, whatever, and then evening social events. And that model will surely require a lot of investigation and trial and error. And when that is again well baked, then we can export that too, and build out a franchise system where people can license our name as long as they're operating within our principles and honoring all those lessons we've learned, and also contributing to the whole apparatus, and then growing all of that into a centralized media company, effectively, where we've got all these builders are able to pay to create content. They can do instructional videos, or they can just vlog. They can talk about their experiences with certain things. We can do testimonials, and perhaps have a digital magazine talking about all this stuff, and really raise the frequency of what's going on here, and get the faster it grows, the faster it grows exponentially, I believe. So
that's exciting. You've got lots of great ideas. So if anybody wants to get involved, should they contact you? How do they get in touch?
Yeah. You can email us at hello@justnaked.com, or fill out the contact form on our website at justnaked.com.
So that was back in December, and certainly it's been slow over the winter. But December of 2019, if you're listening to this into the future, because a lot of folks keep catching up on this show and listen to all the back episodes. So if you are following recently and you're just on the time, you know that it's been a little bit slow with regards to what they've been posting, but they've got lots of ideas. I just talked to Adam today, and he's got lots of plans still, and he's been working away. So I think there's going to be some exciting stuff happening in the near future. So that'll be all for this episode of the Naturist Living Show. And thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview. Again, my name is Stéphane Deschênes, and I'm the host of the podcast and the owner of Bare Oaks. And I make the show with a lot of help from Samantha Graham, who is now our producer, and she makes the task so much easier because she does time-consuming editing, and she also keeps things organized, and she's always on top of me to make sure things are getting done. So thank you, Samantha, for that. You're going to find links to all the items mentioned in the show notes, and Adam talked about a number of interesting things that you'll want to go take a look at, and we'll put links to all of the different social media presence that they have on the web. There's a lot of places to take a look. The show notes on the show's website, which is at naturistlivingshow, all in one word, .com. And please keep sending your comments and suggestions. I always appreciate getting them, and I enjoy reading them all. I do read them all, even if I don't always have time to reply. The show's email address is contact@naturistlivingshow.com. You can also call us and leave a comment if you want. We're still doing that. We haven't had any voice comments for this show, but feel free to call country code 1-905-473-6060 or toll free if you're in the U.S. and Canada at 1-888-373-9124. And you can also Skype Bear Oaks. I realized it wasn't working for a little bit because my credit card had expired, and so I had to update it. But Bear Oaks on Skype, BAREOAKS, one word, does work and gets you, all of those numbers will get you into the main phone system. And then the show's extension is 333. I hope you enjoyed this show and that you'll join us again for the next episode of the Naturist Living Show.
This episode of the Naturist Living Show was brought to you by Bear Oaks Family Naturist Park. Traditional naturist values in a modern setting. Traditional values means that naturism is more than just taking your clothes off. It is a life philosophy with physical, psychological, environmental, social, and moral benefits. Bear Oaks Family Naturist Park strives to promote those naturist values in a modern setting that provides the amenities and services that our members and visitors expect. Free your body, free your mind. Learn more at www.bearoaks.ca.
I would like to welcome the delegates to the 16th Congress, the third in Great Britain. Recent years have seen an enormous upsurge in naturism throughout the world. In particular, in England, we must be happy to see the inauguration of the first official naturist beach at Hastings. Over 10 million people in Germany alone now take an annual naturist holiday, and the naked human today is more and more acceptable to the public at large.